Hey guys, to celebrate Women's Month, I decided to talk about one particular woman who, if she succeeded, would have changed the history of the world forever. I particularly admire this woman for her strength and conviction. It is absolutely no historical secret that Britain has done a lot of invading in its time. Britain has invaded approximately 90% of the world's countries, and at one point the British Empire owned 25% of the globe. History, of course, is a domino effect. For example, the Roman Empire invaded and colonized Britain. And I'm using colonized in the literal sense, not to compare and contrast with the British Empire's colonization of other countries, because that colonization has impacts that last to this day. And while traces of the Celtic tribes do exist, they are for the most part gone. Which is sad, but it means that there is no one around to suffer the consequences. Like many countries that Britain has colonized, Britain itself had an indigenous people. There were many different tribes all over Britain with their own customs, beliefs, and ways of life. Today I would like to tell you about a specific tribe, and even more particularly their leader, Boudicca. The Iceni were a tribe of ferocious warriors, having territories in Norfolk and parts of Suffolk and Cambridgeshire. Archaeological evidence does give us some insight into the Iceni way of life. They appear to be particularly interested in metalwork and horses and were agrarian, harvesting wheat and barley. Their houses were round and always faced the rising sun, possibly for religious reasons. If they were anything like other tribes in Britain at the time, it was likely they also had a lot of tattoos. Julius Caesar didn't mention the Iceni during his invasions of Britain, 55 to 54 AD, but they could be related to the Seni who he did mention and did have tattoos and markings of that nature. The Iceni were in significant power during Claudius's conquest of Britain in 43 AD, and they even allied with the Romans. But as history has taught us, things were not going to be peaceful for long. They originally rose against the Romans in 47 AD after Governor Publius Ostorius Scapula threatened to disarm them. They were defeated, but they retained their independence. A second uprising occurred in 61 AD after the death of Iceni king Prastarius. In his will, he left his kingdom to be jointly ruled by the Roman emperor and his two daughters, a sign of possible gender equality within the Iceni people. Rome rejected this and took everything, as well as having his widow Boudicca flogged and his daughters arred. Queen Boudicca was enraged. She gathered her people and alongside neighbouring tribe, the Trinovates, led a revolt across modern-day Colchester, London and St Albans. 120,000 marched east, destroying and looting everything in their path. According to Roman historian Cassius Dio, Boudicca called upon the goddess of victory, Andraste, to assist them in battle. The first target, Colchester, was taken after 2 days. A bronze statue of Emperor Nero was decapitated, its head taken as a prize for the Celtic army. Shortly after, London was abandoned, and Boudicca's army burnt it to the ground. By this time, the death toll is estimated to be 70 to 80,000. The Britons had no interest in taking captives or slaves, and killed anyone in their way. Deaths could be brutal, with noble women impaled on spikes, their breasts cut off and sewn into their mouths. It is important to note that the records of this were written by Roman historians, and therefore perhaps they were trying to make the Iceni seem more savage than they were. But if this did happen, it is a reflection on the rage Boudicca felt when she was flogged and her daughters were violated. She wanted to do the same thing to the Roman women for what was done to her people. Parts of this, as we will go along, will show Boudicca to be quite the ruthless woman. However, we have to note, she's not doing anything that a man of her time wouldn't have also done. This is done with many different female leaders over time. Wu Zetian is another example of this. She didn't do anything that any other male Chinese emperor wouldn't have done, and arguably was one of the best emperors in Chinese history when it came to prosperity and cultural diversity within China. There are emperors that have done far worse than Wu Zetian ever did. Cleopatra is another one. Being a pharaoh in ancient Egypt could be brutal, and yet she is honed in on. This is because they are women, and therefore some systems want to twist it to make it sound like they didn't do a good job when they kind of really actually bossed it. Not to say that all of these cases are completely infallible and they were amazing and did good jobs. It's just important to note that it is a common theme when talking about female leaders in history, especially when it comes to Boudicca, because her story has been written by the winning side, the opposition, so we're getting the Romans' perspective. Unfortunately, it is a tactic that Britain itself has used to justify invading and colonizing other nations, saying that they were savages and they needed to be civilized. I'm using all of these on quotes. These aren't my words. This is history's words. Back to the topic at hand. Boudicca is wrecking these Romans. She has destroyed Colchester, London has had to be evacuated, and some Roman officials are just outright escaping to other European places that just aren't in Boudicca's path. She's proving to be an efficient leader and a good tactician. They weren't expecting this from Boudicca. They thought she would be some sad widow on the side who would just run away in shame after being flogged. Oh, no. Boudicca is not that woman. She is not that bitch, okay? She will fight you. And she did. Across the country. The Iceni and their allies would later take St. Albans. That's 3 down. They haven't had a defeat yet. Roman governor Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, who had previously had London evacuated, decided to take a stand. It is disputed where the ambush occurred, but was most likely the Roman road, modern Watling Street, which would have then been a wooded pass. While the Romans were heavily outnumbered, facing 230 to 300,000 rebels, they did succeed. They had the advantage on the battlefield due to their fighting style being more suited to the narrow terrain when compared to the tribal warriors, who were more used to open combat in wide spaces. After the defeat of the Iceni and their allies, it was most unusual that the Romans did not spare any women or animals. They would tend to take women as slaves and animals as work animals, but they didn't. And I think personally this suggests that they took the women to be threats, based on how they saw Boudicca rise up against them. Boudicca, however, was not killed on the battlefield. She would have been a precious and invaluable political prisoner. Tacitus claims that Boudicca poisoned herself rather than become a pawn of the Roman Empire. Dio claims, on the other hand, that she simply fell sick and died. Whatever happened to Boudicca, she did have a grand burial. Her tomb, or what is assumed to be her tomb, has been found since, and she was buried with items befitting of royalty. Boudicca's legacy wouldn't become prominent until the 16th to the 18th centuries. During Elizabeth I's reign, Tacitus's work was rediscovered, and he mentioned therein the warrior queen. Her name was never mentioned in any historical text, and it's likely Boudicca wasn't her real name, but it does mean victory in Celtic. In 1588, Britain needed to defend itself from a potential invasion from the Spanish Armada. Thus, Boudicca's legend resonated with many and she was popularised. In 1610, Shakespeare's younger contemporaries Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher wrote the play Boudicca. That play in turn was set to music, sometimes referred to as the British heroine. One song in particular, Britain's Strike Home, became a popular patriotic anthem in the 18th and 19th centuries. William Cowper wrote a popular poem, Boudicca, an ode, in 1782. Between the 19th and 20th centuries, Boudicca truly became legendary as she was seen as being Victoria's namesake, them having names with identical meanings. Victory. During this time, more poems were written about her and ships were named after her. Between around the 1850s and the 1860s, a statue was made in Boudicca's honour called Boudicca and Her Daughters. Prince Albert was particularly supportive of the project, providing his horses as models. It now stands guard over London at the western end of Westminster Bridge, inscribed with "Region Caesar never knew, thy posterity shall sway." The suffragettes also took Boudicca as a symbol of female empowerment during their movement. Boudicca was undoubtedly a significant figure within British history. She showed that women had the right to rule, that women could just be as competent when leading troops and devising militaristic strategies than men. And if she had succeeded, the course of history may well be completely different to what we know it to be today. If she had succeeded, would the British Empire have really and truly become what it was? That's the wild thing. If Boudicca had succeeded, even if eventually down the line she had been defeated, what would that mean for history? Would Britain have had as strong as an empire as it did? Would Britain have been able to colonise as many countries as Britain has colonised? Who knows? I wanted to bring Boudicca up because it's only in more recent history, perhaps in the last few hundred years, that she's actually been remembered as a historical figure. And it just goes to show that women, when put to task, can just be as good as men. And the only reason she truly failed is because the Romans decided to play dirty. Rude. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope maybe if you'd never heard of Boudicca before, maybe you know more about her. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.